that you're the head of, what kind of work has your team been doing since COVID-19?
Okay, first of all, I'm the cluster manager for emergency response, and it's quite a number of members that make up this cluster. It ranges from the RCIPS, CBC, Cayman Islands Coast Guard, we have the Cayman Islands Fire Service, I have the Emergency Communications Center, I have the prisons, and I have the Cayman Islands Airport Authority. At the very beginning, with the activation of the NEOC, we were all mustered together in dealing with this response. I can tell you that it has been multi-pronged. We had to struggle so far. This is the 73rd day that the NEOC was open, and we had to struggle with the regular duties of our immediate agencies. For example, there was the dump fire. Fire had to deal with that, and you would recall for many days you couldn't use the Esterly Tibbetts Highway. The RCIPS, obviously, we were dealing with the curfews, both the soft and the hard curfews, and those to date have been going very well. And before I go even further, we couldn't have done that without the support of the public. Everyone has taken COVID-19 very seriously, and we do appreciate that. However, there've been, persons who thought that they could, breach the curfew, both soft and hard curfews, and they have been prosecuted. But generally, we've had the evacuation of persons in the repatriation flights, and we've had just over 1,000 persons who've left the jurisdiction so far. So you can imagine what it was like for the airport authority and all the services, all the clusters coming together, especially from support services, human concerns, the RCIPS, everybody coming together to make that happen. Also, we've had, some instances with the prison. Within the prison, there were some concerns from the prisoners and staff alike, should COVID take some kind of hold there. I'd like to praise the prison director as well. He's been very, very proactive. He sits within my cluster as well, and he has been doing 14-day isolations for any new prisoners coming into the system before he would actually put them into the general population. So this has worked very well. The agencies, we are all wearing masks, and for the purpose of this interview, I'm not wearing one today, but we are all wearing masks. We have our PPEs. We try to be safe. And so far, within the clusters, it's about 1,200 of us cross service, and the rate of sickness is less than 2%. So when I actually look at my counterparts in the US, particularly in New York, they've got thousands of police officers who are out sick, and sadly, there were a few deaths. But for my cluster, it's a very busy one, although so far I would say, and that's only because of the general compliance of the community, that it's not, they haven't make it a big problem for the Cayman Islands, and for that I do appreciate that.
Okay. So what are some of the next steps? What are the plans going forward as we move to the next stage and we've started to open up the community, everything locally?
Yes. What we find with the various stages moving from level 5, as more and more persons into the economy are factored in, we can actually see this with the traffic and using the technologies available. I can tell you yesterday, between 5 a.m. and 11:30 a.m., there was some 22,000 hits island-wide on the automatic number plate recognition system. Bearing in mind that the Cayman Islands, we have approximately 60,000 registered vehicles, I would figure we are still about maybe 1/3 or less of 1/3 of the regular traffic you would see. But it shouldn't come as a surprise if you start to notice more and more vehicles. Certainly it's a big difference than how it was 2 months ago. As the economy opens up more, I anticipate we'll see more and more vehicles on the roads. I can say that as you move around in the businesses, persons are social distancing, they're wearing masks, and as you know, landscapers, for example, you would have noticed that there are a lot of landscapers out there. The construction workers have returned, and we look forward and we will work with more persons as they come online to us.
Okay. Moving on to another subject, we have hurricane season that is upon us. Your cluster, like all the other clusters, are very, very important in how we, react to and prepare for any storms that may head our way. What kind of plans are ongoing as we approach June 1st?
Well, definitely we're looking for the June start, hurricane season straight through to November 30th. The forecast is predicted to be just above normal, and we're hoping that we would be spared again this year. But for this cluster, the emergency response, we have the search and rescue cluster that is meeting right now as we speak. So they're sort of putting their plans together going into this forward into the season. Some of the things they'll be looking at is the small boat owners, they'll be looking at heavy equipment operators, they'll be honing their skills as to what is required. So that's a collaboration between the fire service, is headed by the fire chief, Mr. Paul Walker, and on that committee we also have the Commander Robert Scotland. He's with the Cayman Islands Coast Guard. There's some representation from Port Authority, and there's the heavy equipment operators as well, just to name a few. But the evacuation committee, which consists and headed by Mr. Albert Anderson from Cayman Islands Airport Authority, they actually work closely with the airlines, they work with the consulates on island. Should residents see, if there is part of their personal plan ahead of a major hurricane, they can evacuate ahead of time, providing, of course, there are flights available. So that's one of the other things. The other committee that works really hard with us as well is the RCIPS, Security and Law Enforcement. We know historically that police officers, we are pre-deployed ahead of the storm. And let me explain that in a few seconds here. We use the geographic beats on Grand Cayman. There are 17 of them. And we place police officers at different locations. So they're not only police stations, but there are certain business places, for example. And the reason being is just in case the roads become impassable due to flood or debris, fallen trees, poles, utility wires, whatever, the officers in that beat can respond directly to the cause. So if you're in a beat somewhere on the West Bay Road, say Regatta, there are officers there, or the Ritz-Carlton, for example, that's another. Or we have various shelters throughout the islands. So there are all police officers through all the districts, including Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. So we're there, we're positioned, we get out there. There were issues historically of persons looting. We tried to get there first, and we've done a pretty good job in maintaining law and order in these islands. And I would say that the Cayman Islands really is a very safe place to live and work.
Okay, just as we begin to wrap up here, what would you say to the public as it relates to the current pandemic that we're all experiencing with the rest of the world? I mean, a few months ago we had earthquake. Now we're going through this pandemic. The hurricane season is upon us. Should a storm head our way, what would you say to people at this point to remind them about vigilance?
We don't need to be complacent at this time. And we know historically some persons were complacent in fact because we have not been hit by a major hurricane, then we should take it easy. This is not the time to take it easy. This is the time to take hurricane season very seriously. We know that persons who live in the low-lying areas, let's say for example, if a hurricane does come your way, there's a mandatory evacuation. Please follow the advice, evacuate, listen to the official words of the government or the weather service, and avoid listening to the television, overseas, international media. It doesn't quite give the same context of what you're experiencing. And storm surge. Storm surge is perhaps the biggest threat in any major storm. And those of us, forgive me for saying this, going back to Hurricane Ivan, nobody expected to see those sort of waves. And even I was taken back a bit. A lot of persons, for example, became trapped in their homes. They tried to elevate themselves. When the rising waters came in, some homes suffered 4, 5, 6 feet of water inside. People retreated to countertops. People went on refrigerators, washing machines, dryers. Some people even went into the attic space. It was that bad. So what I'm saying, even for search and rescue, we generally cut services to persons when sustained winds of 45 miles an hour is out there because of the danger of it. And I would say that usually wave action comes in a lot earlier than that because of the winds pushing the water. So we know that the roads may become flooded at times, and if we have to go to a home or residence, then we try to use a bigger vehicle similar to a fire truck or something that is pretty high above the water. But my advice generally to residents, we are dealing with the pandemic, COVID-19. Stay safe, maintain your social distancing. But I'll put it this way for a hurricane. Let's put it this way. If COVID-19 is on one side of the door and on the other side of the door is a hurricane, well, I'm sorry, COVID, but you may have to take a back seat here because there's a hurricane outside and we need to keep safe from that. So I would say prepare yourself, look around the house, do the things you need to do, trim the trees, look at debris, look at things outside that can become flying missiles and get rid of those ahead of time. Buy your hurricane supplies and store them. So as we get into hurricane season in June, every time you go to the supermarkets, for example, you can pick up a few other items and you can keep adding to that. As far as your travel documents are concerned, just put those in Ziploc bags, something that you can keep dry, and you can go to the hazard management website, which is www.caymanprepared.ky, and you will find a host of information there as well. But COVID, we'll be dealing with COVID for months to come, and hurricane season is no different. But I want to say and leave you with this: keep safe, and everyone do enjoy yourselves as best as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Seals.
Okay.